Our guest on today's show claims that every minute is a show. And frankly speaking, he may very well be right. I mean, did you watch this video?
For Jackie, right?
The woman slides in.
How are you?
You're like a white guy.
What's that?
Her male companion remains outside.
You're like a normal guy. Like you speak English. Sorry.
Nah, you can get out of the car.
Ow.
Because you guys are racist. Yeah.
Then the driver stands up for himself.
No, I'm calling the cops on you, man. Go ahead. It's all on camera.
Catasauqua police confirmed the driver, James Bode, filed a police report Friday night. The police chief tells us the case is under investigation.
Well, 10 million viewers did watch this on top of a primetime coverage on CNN. But how far will this go? I don't think anyone has described it better than Charlie Brooker, the writer behind Black Mirror, a dystopian world in the near future where technology has taken overhand. And by the way, one of the future guests on the M&M show, watch this video.
Nosedive. Nosedive is a satire on acceptance and the image of ourselves we like to portray and project to others. It stars Bryce Dallas Howard, who's fantastic, and she's playing a character called Lacey, who lives her life trying to please everyone.
Lacey is lost. She's lost herself in this world where she thinks that her value is equivalent to her points.
2 stars? 2 stars?
Wasn't a meaningful encounter.
Everyone is a little bit heightened and false because everyone's terrified of being marked down because the consequences of that are unpleasant. So it's basically the world we live in.
It's basically the world we live in right now. Reputational cost is costly now. In fact, our guests claim that the object is more important than the substance. And perhaps not surprisingly, if you know who the guests are, they claim that emotional intelligence has never before been as important as it is today. Let's start the M&M show. everyone, welcome to all our viewers across the world, our World Business Forum audience, and all our Chief Executive Magazine readers. I'm Martin Lindstrom, your co-host, along with my dear friend and the world's #1 leadership coach, Marshall Goldsmith. Marshall is a member of the Thinkers 50 Hall of Fame, which means he's older than I, just so you know, and he's written some of the most iconic books out there, including his latest bestseller. And I just got the news, it's fresh from the press. It's now finally a New York Times bestseller, so deserved. The Earned Life, Lose Regret, Choose Fulfillment, is published across the world. In fact, just so you know, Marshall, I was in Germany in Frankfurt Airport yesterday, and I saw your book on the shelf there. So don't tell me it's not distributing in words. It's amazing. Welcome, Marshall.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so happy to be here with my good friend, Martin Lindstrom. Now, let me briefly say a word or two about Martin. Martin is the world's most interesting person. He is, I've learned so much from him, I can't imagine. He was one of the Time 100 most influential people, but only in 100 most influential in the world. He's the author of some amazing books. I was talking about one of them today, Small Data, with my daughter Kelly. Just some amazing stuff, biology among others. Martin also does a phenomenal amount of good deeds. He's always out there helping other people. He's an incredibly creative guy. And I'm just very, very honored to be working with him. Also, he has done an amazing job in putting this show together. So Martin, as always.
Thank you. And you know what, everyone, just when you're watching it, this is the reason why I'm doing this show. It's actually just so I can get this boost of self-confidence for 5 minutes by Marshall. I so desperately need it these days, right? Listen, if you have any questions or comments, post them here, okay? Or just tell us who you are and where you are. And by the way, if you like the show, don't forget to press the like or the follow or the subscribe button. Now, Marshall, I have to tell you one thing. I'm so excited about today's guest because for him, I know that it's your hero and it's actually my hero. Tell me more about Daniel.
Daniel Goleman is, again, an amazing, amazing human being. He is an author, and really he developed a term that has become almost like a Xerox or a Coke. It's become a popular term in our day-to-day terminology called emotional intelligence. Now, I think Daniel was not only ahead of his time, he's way ahead of his time. And I think what's happening now is the world is actually catching up. The need for what Daniel is doing has become so blatantly obvious now that stuff that he said maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago now has become critically, critically important in a way that is almost undeniable. I am a big fan of Daniel's. He has worked with me before. He is a good human being as well. And I'm a little jealous of him, to be perfectly honest. You were talking about social media. This guy has several million followers on LinkedIn, more than I do. So I'm a little bit jealous of him from a social media perspective. So Daniel Goleman, just a great guy. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Marshall, it's such a pleasure to be here. I think we last saw each other in Brazil some years ago. And now you look like you're in Dubai. I understand you're in Riyadh. I mean, you're all over the world.
I just bought a new home in Dubai. I have a home in the Burj Khalifa. I like the Burj Khalifa because if you're in Dubai and people say, where do you live? You just point up. So, yeah, I live up there. So it's the tallest building in the world. Now, Daniel, let me give you my first question, which is, I don't know, it's sort of a question, I guess. Okay. My question is this. I think what you're doing is more important than ever for two reasons. One of them I'd call as a positive reason, because I think it's really important that leaders demonstrate emotional intelligence. They do the kind of stuff that you say because of the new workforce, the new world. And the other, I don't want to make the question too complex. I don't know if the right word is negative, but it's a have to reason. Because if you do things now that create a toxic workforce, you can just get crucified. So I think I'd like you to answer this question. I think what you're doing is more important than ever, number one. And I think for two reasons. One reason is what I call the positive, and two is kind of the negative, or I don't know, maybe a better word for it, is the preventative medicine part. One of it is doing the right thing to do the right thing. The other is doing the right thing to avoid getting killed. Am I making any sense?
You make total sense, Marshall. One way to think about it, I know that you do a lot of coaching at the top of the house. And of course, you're famous for that. I have a friend who evaluates C-suite executives, CEOs, and so on. And she says, every one of them has a high level of achievement. They're driven to, ambitious to get their goals. That's what gets them there. But if they don't have empathy, it becomes toxic. If they don't care, because one of the roles of a leader, and more people are understanding this, is to be a coach, to be someone like yourself, to help people who are your direct reports, for example, get better at what they do, not to dismiss them, not to be angry at them. You showed some clips at the beginning of the show. The first one definitely has to do with how you manage yourself. And that, of course, is part of emotional intelligence. And it's true at the top of an organization. It's true for a taxi cab driver. Everyone needs it. And I think you're right. We need it now more than ever.
Daniel, I would claim that empathy is witnessing an existential crisis right now for multiple reasons. I mean, one of them is that we're all looking at and watching screen content all the time, and we can't look each other in the eyes. You can't even see your body language anymore, which I would claim is a major part of our communication skills. But it's also the fact we don't dare to express emotions, because what if there's just so many factors around it. Do you agree with this assessment, and where is this going?
It's really funny you say that. When I first wrote the book, Emotional Intelligence, which was in '95, I'd seen the phrase. Peter Salovey, a friend of mine, is president of Yale, wrote an article using that. And I said, wow, people need to know about this. So I wrote the book, and I wrote about managing with emotional intelligence and started talking to businesses. People said, you can't use the word emotion in business, because that was the norm. You didn't express it. But now we've come to see that if you don't express it, if you don't recognize it, if you don't acknowledge it, you're missing the boat, because people always bring emotion with them, whatever they're doing. There's emotion at work, there's emotion at home. The brain doesn't distinguish. And so the best leaders are people who can be honest about their own emotion and can tune in with empathy and understand what other people feel. And by the way, there are 3 kinds of empathy, 2 of which are very useful for manipulation, the third of which makes you a very good leader. The first is cognitive empathy. I understand how you think about the world, your perspective. I know the terms you use. I can use language you'll understand. The second is emotional empathy. I know what you're feeling. I feel it too. I sense it. This is really important. Those 2 things alone can be used if you only care about yourself for your own ends. But the third is the inoculation. The third is called empathic concern. It means I care about you. I care about the organization. It's not just about my career. It's about us. It's about we. And this is why leaders, for example, need to be coaches. They need to help people develop further strengths, not dismiss them as they are.
It's interesting. You talk about executives not being trained in this. I've got a story that with Martin involved was, I think, in a way more tragic. Martin was kind enough to help me work with a children's hospital. We talked about this concept of empathy in a children's hospital. My friend Telly, the actor, Telly, the young Broadway star, did a thing for the hospital too. And I said, well, I'm sure that you all have had a lot of training in empathy and caring for people, how to deal with that. Given you're CEO of a children's hospital, you work in a children's hospital. The answer was 0, just 0.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
This is not a business. No. We're talking about a children's hospital, right? Not a business. I mean, the business, I totally agree with you, Daniel. I totally agree with you on the business. But if it's important in a business, it's got to be important times 10 in a children's hospital.
We've been studying organizations that do value emotional intelligence. One of the premier ones is the nation's number one cancer hospital, MD Anderson in Texas. If you have a cancer diagnosis, go there for a second opinion. They're state of the art. The CEO, Peter Pfister, is a big advocate, a champion for emotional intelligence. He makes sure that all the people coming in know this, that they have a culture of it, because it embodies caring. And the mission of a hospital, of course, is not to make money. The mission is to help people. And I actually think that as time goes on, it's going to be more important for companies of all kinds to embrace a values-based mission, because younger people are facing a bleak future, which is a byproduct, a side effect of the way our economy has worked. And I think that they will want to work for companies and stay with companies and organizations that have values that match their own. And, you know, this of course has to do with climate change, but equity, many other values. And I think that that the value dimension, which by the way, in emotional intelligence comes out as self-awareness, knowing what matters to you, what has meaning for you, that dimension will become more and more important in the business world as time goes on.
Daniel, we're going to bring in a guest very soon, which is an associate to you. But before we do that, I have a question from us authors to you, because you have established a term which became the term, as just Maslow was saying, it became a Xerox of the world, right? What was the trick to do that? Where did that begin?
The answer is dumb luck. I wrote the book, and then HBR, Harvard Business Review, picked it up. They ran an article I wrote called What Makes a Leader? It became their #1 most requested reprint. Then they started a whole series of books featuring emotional intelligence. And I think that really put it on the map for leadership and for business. I actually didn't have much to do with it. I was just a passive recipient. It was, you know, the gods, if there are gods, struck that was my secret. I don't know how to do it, frankly.
Just for all of you guys watching out there, it's nothing to do with the quality of his books, of course. It's just pure luck. And let's see if we believe that one right. Okay, coming up, our next guest not only claims that an organization which is emotional intelligence is doing better, she has the evidence to prove it. Our second guest on today's show is Sharon Riegel, originally a lawyer from Berkeley. She is a senior human resource business leader at the Progressive Corporation, which, by the way, is an American insurance company, the third largest insurance carrier, and the #1 commercial auto insurer in the US. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Listen, I noticed your story. You just told me before we went live about how you're an immigrant and you came from South Korea at the age of 5 into the United States, and you had a fascinating observation about how immigrants have an interesting behavior in the business world to get up the ladder.
Right. So happy to share my story. It's, you know, when we came to the States, my family and I, we were very kind of traditional immigrants. We were seeking a better world and a better life for us. And my parents in Korea, we were like really poor, right? So poor, we didn't have indoor plumbing, right? So you're coming to the States thinking you're gonna have a better life. Well, with that comes this work ethic and this notion that you're gonna do whatever it takes to be successful in this new country. Emotions are just an indulgence. Doesn't matter if you feel good or bad, you get up and you go to work and you keep putting one foot in front of the other. So my whole life, starting at 5, I thought of emotions as an indulgence I couldn't afford. So that meant that I spent most of my adult life, you know, not even knowing how to name emotions. It served me well in law because frankly, you know, you learn a very high tolerance for stress, emotional pain, and just getting through the day. It's win or lose, right? So shutting down how you feel about something is actually a pretty useful tool. And being able to segment your thoughts and feelings, highly useful. When you get into a leadership role though, that's a different story. And emotional intelligence is so critical to becoming an effective leader.
So tell me more about this. Now, you're an insurance company. For me, that's numbers, numbers, and numbers. How did you pave the way for emotional intelligence? It seems like water and oil to me.
Well, you know, as Dan said, I was put into an HR role, leadership role, because I was good at my legal role. I was an employment and labor lawyer for the company before I was selected for an HR director role with the commercial auto group. And what I found is that I was woefully unprepared for a leadership role. I was very good at identifying legal issues, devising various options, and recommending ways to proceed. But I really had no idea, really no sense of how do you motivate individuals? How do you help them be better in their role, the coaching aspects of leadership? I just didn't know how to do it. And what I found, I picked up a book called Emotional Intelligence. I read it and I thought, this is the key. This is really so important. And the following a 4-domain process of identifying and understanding how I am feeling, whether it was lost or enthusiastic or frustrated. If I understood how I felt at that moment, now I had some information I didn't have before. It's in my awareness. And now I have some choices about how I'm going to manage my behaviors, choices about what will this feeling enable me to do next? How will I make it effective? And in doing that, I was able to then think about, well, how do my peers, my direct reports, my managers feel? This empathic quality, so important in social awareness, right? Understanding and reading the room. Then in doing that, I was able to develop relationships with people, trusting, credible, and forming these relationships were the vehicle for collaborating on teams, project outcomes, and really led to my ability to be an effective leader. And that's been, over 15 years since, and I'm still at it. It takes practice every day.
One thing that I'm really impressed with about what you're doing is measurement. I'm little known fact, my undergraduate degree is in mathematics and economics. And the reality is, in the world of training and development in HR, there's been a real hesitancy to measure impact. Why? How you do training programs, everybody claps their hand. Daniel and I've done this. You get 4.8 out of 5 and everybody cheers and they pay you lots of money and they get pictures made, right? And that's basically all there is. I really commend you for having the courage to measure things, because you've got to confront real leaders on their actual behavior. And not only do you document winners, you've got to be documenting some losers too. How did you get the backing and or courage to do this? By the way, to be honest, most people in our field do not have the courage to do what you're doing.
Thank you, Marshall. Well, I'll tell you, I am sponsoring a longitudinal study. And the study simply is trying to measure the relationship between a leader's emotional intelligence, the quality and strength of a leader's emotional intelligence, with producing a sense of belonging, a sense of identity with their direct reports. And it's longitudinal because we have 3 phases. So let me just tell you, we start with an assessment, and it's Dan's and Richard Boyatzis's assessment, a 360 assessment. And we've given this 360 assessment to about 200 leaders. And we record a baseline. What is their emotional intelligence baseline? We give surveys to their direct reports, about 1,500 of them. And these are leaders, supervisors, frontline leaders, and managers as well, and measure their sense of belonging. And we have found a statistically significant correlation between a leader's emotional intelligence, the strength of their emotional intelligence, with the strength of a sense of belonging among their direct reports. And with that, we understand that we also have an annual Gallup survey. And we also measured whether there's a correlation with belonging and engagement, and there is. So we have statistical significance showing a correlation with strong emotional intelligence and high engagement levels with their direct reports. We're not done though, because we're entering a second phase. We're going to do a causal analysis. We're entering an A/B phase, where in about 3 to 6 months, we'll have results. But what we're doing here is trying to strengthen leaders' emotional intelligence and seeking a correlation and a causal relationship with an increase in a sense of belonging with their direct reports. And we'll continue with this longitudinal study, follow the participants into many years.
I'm going to give you.
It's fascinating what you're saying there, because I know it works. You told me about some of the fascinating results you've had as a consequence of these steps. But help me here. When you struggle internally to gather momentum around emotional intelligence, because you must have felt a pushback where people are saying, what is this all about? What's your trick to keep up the excitement around this way of thinking?
I think it's just showing, demonstrating its effectiveness. So I can tell you, when I started sponsoring this longitudinal study, I did so with the approval of the customer relationship management president. And I needed the president's approval and buy-in. He's somebody who has invested in the development of leaders for many years. He is now the Progressive's claims president. And this is a person who has deep commitment and investment in leaders. I think he personally felt a benefit of increasing his emotional intelligence, specifically empathy. His ability, he's very high achieving, very successful, and in learning to understand, how do other people feel? How can I put myself in their shoes and understand how do they experience this business and what they need to do to continue to be successful? He was able to increase his empathic skills through emotional intelligence. And what I think he found was that he had better relationships. His direct reports responded to him better. We all moved together as a team, and we produced some phenomenal results in the time that he was our president. So I think the proof happens when you experience it yourself. And so he's been a big supporter.
Fascinating. Now, okay, coming up, what role should technology play in the future, maintaining the existence of empathy? Now, the answer from our guest will for sure surprise you. And you know what, Dan, I want to come back to you for a second here, because we cannot avoid the whole idea about technology, but it does seem like technology increasingly is giving us a handcuff on it. Now, from my own experience, I've certainly witnessed from all our clients around the world that they say their workload has gone up 20 to 25% over the last 2 years alone. People are simply just working more. Now, according to McKinsey, it means that they are more productive. Our claim is almost the opposite, that people are less productive because we're just moving all these PowerPoints and Excel spreadsheets around. And I would claim that most people are exhausted at 6 p.m. when they throw themselves at the couch and then it's time to do the work. This is technology, and it's the flip side of it. Help me here to understand technology and empathy. Does that go together at all? What's this all about?
This is a really important question, because so much of what's done at a distance, virtual work, is done on teleconferences with a laptop or a machine that was not designed for it. So for example, I have this problem with you right now, Martin. If I look to camera, then we can have rapport because it's eye to eye. If I look at your face to see how you're feeling, to read your expressions, I lose the eye contact. If we were there in person, it wouldn't be a problem. We could have rapport very easily. So this means that given technology, you've got to make an extra effort to connect with the person. For example, you could reach out with a phone call. You could have a one-on-one instead of just seeing a person in a meeting. But I think it's now more important for people on the same team, for leaders, to make that extra effort to connect with the person.
Yeah, you're so right. And Marshall, I know you have a question for Dan. So before I shoot loose, over to you.
Well, I really have a question for Sharon, and that is, Sharon, I'm going to make a prediction. You're going to be getting some pushback. And I'm going to make a second prediction. I think everything you say is going to work. I think from my experience, the problem is not understanding that it's doing it. I think you're going to document it does work. I love what you're doing. I love you having the courage to do it. I'm going to warn you in advance. You're going to get pushback from some people who get bad scores. You're going to have to confront some real executives, and some of them are going to be real powerful, and they are not going to love you. So my question is, which is hard for an HR person because you're not a line manager, how are you going to deal with it?
Well, if you permit me to step back just a minute, Marshall, I'll let you know that we actually, at Progressive, when I first started my career in the commercial lines business, we used your coaching methodology. And it was very powerful because it It involved others. We selected stakeholders. We
Right.
selected behaviors we wanted to change. We invited observation real time.
Real
And what we
time.
said, right? And what we said is, when you receive feedback, feed forward, right? Pay attention to the information versus your own instincts for defensiveness.
Right.
And that whole enterprise of engaging others to help you get better,
Right.
and you accepting the feedback that you're getting to use it feed forward,
Right.
and just pay attention to that information, it made you better.
Yeah.
And the proof was in the ability to get better. So when I get pushback, I go back to, how are you today versus before the training and use of emotional intelligence. And I think most people, including our current claims president, will say that the work on emotional intelligence, empathy in particular, has made him a more powerful, more caring leader that has made him more successful. So that's what I would say. Proof is in the pudding.
I completely agree with you, and here's my prediction. The people that do exactly what you guys say, and Daniel, they're going to get better. I believe that in all my heart. I love what you're doing. The challenge is going to be getting them to do it and to step up and do the work. And that's going to be a fun challenge for you. And I just applaud you and Daniel for both, number one, having the courage to do this, which a lot of people don't. And number two, measuring it to show that it actually works. It's not just a popularity contest. So again, Martin, big round of applause for these two.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Now, you know what? I think it's time for the BCG Minute. And we actually asked Amy Edmondson, an American scholar of leadership, teaming, and organizational learning, professor of leadership at Harvard Business School, and author of 7 books and more than 75 articles, among others, best-selling The Psychological Safety book. We asked her to run today's BCG Minute. Should we run that?
I have found that the wisest CEOs understand that their biggest concern is that they might not know what's really going on. And so the question becomes, do you know what's really going on? And how concerned are you about it? And do you know who might be afraid of you? Because if the answer to that third question, do you know who might be afraid of you, is no, I think you have some work to do.
If we talk about a hero mana, she definitely is one of them. Dan, what's your thinking about this? Do these business leaders out there at all, are they able to answer that question today?
Well, I don't know if anyone knows who's afraid of them. That's a very profound question.
Yeah.
However, I will say this, and Marshall, I'd be interested in your thoughts on it. I've been involved with it. I've stayed out of consulting and coaching most of my career. I just started something called the Goleman Consulting Group, which is actually, I think, turbocharging what you're doing, Marshall, because our outlook is that you can coach at the top of the house, but the cost benefit isn't the same throughout. But as Sharon is telling us, you need a culture that supports this. How do you spread it? And we've looked at companies do it well. And we're finding that, for example, if you can get the people on the C-suite or getting coaching, for example, to become leaders of groups that are helping people become more emotionally intelligent using your model, using our model. Oh, that shouldn't happen.
We've lost a guest, just so you know.
Yeah. So can I pick up?
Sure. Yeah, of course you can pick up. Marshall, just answer the question, then try to, because
I think Daniel wasn't finished. Let him finish his.
Oh, you want to finish? I thought that you wanted to pick up the phone.
No. So I think that if these groups, for example, implement your model, we have a model, Sharon mentioned you have to practice. This is not the same as learning in school. This is building a skill. It's like working on your golf stroke. You have to keep practicing every day. Marshall, you need that feedback from people who see you every day. And as Sharon says, you want to feed forward. You want to accept the feedback as news to use. But we see the potential for doing this in groups much lower in the organization to spread the emotional intelligence into the culture. I think that's really important and completely complementary to what you're doing, Marshall.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree. And again, there's a million things in life that are important that I'm not doing. And that's one of the millions of things in life that are important I'm certainly not doing. I have trouble enough just working with one person at a time and trying to help them do a few things better. So that's kind of the limit of my skills here. On the other hand, I love what you guys are doing. I love the organizational impact. I love the idea of working together as a team. And I love this idea of spreading the word. And again, back to Sharon's good point, I love measurement. Because if you don't measure things, how do you actually know it does any good? That's one thing I always like about stakeholder coaching. You measure things. And I just love the idea of measurement. And most people don't have the courage to do it. So again, I'm really applauding you and your leadership, because you're not sharing, you're not doing this by yourself. If you didn't have some support, you couldn't do this. A lot of HR people believe like you do, and they don't have the support to make it happen. So some people aren't on this call also need a little round of applause. You're going to have some support from some executives in your company helping you do this stuff. So Daniel and Sharon, I love what you're doing. I think it's totally complimentary. And I think it works at all levels. I don't think there's a level it doesn't work. I mean, I'll tell you one thing I find ridiculous. Sometimes I work with executive teams. They'll say something like this: do you have a toned down version for the lower level employees? I hate that. Come on, get a break, right? A toned down version. Who are you, right? Yeah, maybe we need a toned up version for people who don't make idiot comments like that. So I really believe people are people. And the best of my knowledge, most of those people, quote, at the lower levels, their IQs are just about as high as the ones at the, quote, higher levels. They're just a little younger.
I would agree.
You're so right about this. Listen, I think it's time to do the mule summary. And this time we're going to do it differently, because Dan is going to do it instead of me. And I'm going to go down to the beach and have a cocktail while he's doing the work. So let's run the mule summary.
I want you to know that there are 4 parts to emotional intelligence. The first is self-awareness, knowing what you're feeling, how it matters for what you're thinking, what you're about to do, what your values are. That's the basis for the next part of emotional intelligence, self-management, using that information to be emotionally balanced. Emotions are contagious. You, as a leader, you want to be in your best state. You want to be positive. You want to keep your eye on your goals. You want to be adaptable. And self-management helps you do that. The next part has to do with tuning into the other person. Empathy, being able to read emotions without a person telling you in words what they're feeling. People don't do that. You have to pick it up. And if you put those 3 things together, you can have beautiful relationship management. You can have interactions that are powerful. You can lead people. You can inspire them. You can influence them. You can be a fantastic team player on your own team. And you can be the kind of leader who understands that coaching their direct reports, coaching the people they lead, is part of leadership.
Well done, Dan. Well done. I mean, you can run this show. We should call it the M&D show instead, right? Thank you to listen to both of you for being such an amazing guest. Thanks, Sharon, really for your courage and your ability to make emotional intelligence become so prominent in your organization. Thanks, Dan, for your amazing work over the last many, many years. Any reflections from you, Marshall?
I think, I love what Sharon is doing. We've talked about it. I'm so proud of you for having the courage to do it. And it's not easy. I mean, kudos to you too. It's not easy. It's a lot easier just to make people happy than it is to actually confront reality like you're doing. And Daniel, I think you're getting better. I mean, I think you're getting better. I actually, a little positive feedback for you. I really noticed a lot more positive feeling when you talk than I even did before. So I think, you were great before, and you were headed in a positive bent. So my feeling is hooray for both of these two.
And then, just so you know, if you want to use that endorsement, which is now recorded, well, guess what? Then you can find it on martinlindstrom.com/mm/ because they will have the video, we'll have the show notes, we'll have hundreds of free videos from all things, including Marshall Goldsmith's endorsement of Dan Goleman. This is pretty remarkable, right? Talk about a testimonial. You know what? I want to say thank you to all of you guys and girls watching out here. And I just want to say that on the 28th of June, we will have Jamil Saki and Peter Hissen on our show. And oh my, you're in for a treat. I love those two people. And Peter is remarkable because he's going to talk about a concept which is called the day after tomorrow, where you are structuring all your thinking in a very coherent way. I love it. I mean, you just have to watch this show. So this is all happening on the 28th of June. And in the meantime, be well, stay safe, and hopefully see you very soon. Bye for now.
Every day is a new challenge, right? Is a day that we can prepare ourselves even more.
This is about leadership as a mindset.
We do work that matters for people who care.
We live in the age of the idea.